Nebraska has a starting quarterback, finally. His name is Dylan Raiola. We'll tell you next why this is a good thing.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football HC. This is a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today.
All right, welcome in. Happy Thursday. Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. The Dylan Raiola era has begun officially. Not that it, now I guess we could say officially. Nebraska announced on Wednesday morning, just a little after 10:30 on Twitter, hey, here's a picture of Dylan Raiola, or was it Patrick Mahomes? Who knows? And he's the starting quarterback. He will start against UTEP, they said. I guess that's what.
Okay.
Nothing about the whole season. He's going to start against UTEP.
Game one, week one. They go one game at a time. How did you feel about the way this was announced?
Yeah, I guess.
Did you think it was fake for like 10 seconds?
I had to definitely click and look. All right, at Husker football. All right, we got it. I didn't really have any expectations for how they were going to do it, just because
I didn't think this.
It's been so downplayed. But yeah, I didn't really think it would just pop up in a tweet. And it wasn't like, it didn't seem to be timed or anything like that either. It wasn't like, noon. It was, I believe 10:38. It just went out. So it was very, very undersold, just like most of this entire Dylan Raiola thing so far.
I wondered if they got hacked for a second, because there seemed to be a little input into the announcement, which is somewhat unlike Nebraska in the way that digital media works. And I was looking for like a third L on Husker football to see if it was the incorrect account that it was coming from. Like, somebody finally got us and everybody retweeted it, and they haven't even made an announcement yet. But it all checked out in about 38 seconds. That's how long it took me to realize that, yes, I was in fact looking at the Nebraska official announcement. I don't know. I think that was part of the MO here, was to do this in a way that was very understated and looked like it was just off the cuff. Like Matt Rhule was walking off the field and said, "Hey, put it out there. Dylan's the starter." And then like 19 seconds later, a tweet was up for all the world to see that the 5-star true freshman was going to get the ball first next week.
I wonder, my mind immediately went to, I just wonder how those conversations went in that room. Like, I wonder, and I'm sure we'll find out, knowing how Nebraska does things. Like, we'll get a very close inside look, I think, at some point, of when Matt Rhule told the team, or when, maybe the meeting with the quarterbacks. Like, I'm very curious of how all those things went and what those conversations were like. Maybe we won't get that inside like the quarterback room, but it's something that they handled very carefully throughout the entire spring and into the summer. And so I wonder what that sounded like when they finally said, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to say it out loud, because we have to. At some point we have to, and they finally did today.
Yeah. There's going to be like the behind the scenes, the tell moment of how all of the Nebraska quarterbacks found out who the starter was. But that would be interesting if this comes out like in the Chasing 3 doc. They go back and replay these moments, or if Rhule and Heinrich Harburg and Dylan all come out on Monday or Tuesday at the Nebraska media and game some insight into what was going on. But I'd like to see it. I don't know that we ever will. I know that we're going to find out here early in early portions of the season when Dylan Trent the starter, and he's like a year or two, they can go back and visit. Remember August of 2024 when you and it all went down.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I think we have a little bit of an internet problem today. We're working through some things here, but it looks like Mitch is straightening out a little bit right now. We're gonna push through this for at least if it gets worse.
Okay? Can you see me? Are we going to be able to make it through?
Yeah. We're gonna this
right.
is an old school like radio. Like, all right, if he's got a bad phone connection, we're gonna go ahead and like see what happens for the next minute and a half, and then we're gonna keep going. So I think we're gonna keep going right now. You look a lot clearer, by the way. But yeah,
if we have to cut bait and start over, hey, that'd be horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess maybe my question is, what happens now? Does this change anything? Is anything different now than it was 24 hours ago? Like, we were talking about it today on my show when you were a guest on it. Like, can Nebraska be more honest about what they've seen with him and I guess more forthcoming, I guess, about what they've seen from him? Like, I kind of want to hear the anecdotes. I want to hear the rise of how he won this job and all the good things that he's done. And I would like to hear and see a little bit of hype placed on him, because he clearly can take it and can handle that type of thing. I know they want to be careful with it, but I don't know. It's kind of the move that I want to see over the next week, even though I'm pretty dubious as to if they're going to do that.
There was like one night where Matt Rhule came back into the office at 2:30 in the morning because he left his wonderful hat on his desk that he needed at home, the one that he tried to give to you, and Dylan was in the offensive film room studying and taking notes, and he knew right then that was it, that Dylan was the guy, because the 19-year-old freshman was the only football player in the office. Something like that. Is that what you're looking for? Like something dramatic? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly it. And it wouldn't surprise, I don't think he's a decision maker in that way. Like, that's not when I knew, but I do want to hear, like, yeah, he's checked all these boxes, and I think like the kind of through line through this whole thing has been, yeah, well, we knew that he has immense talent, but like, he has earned the spot. He has earned this job with what he's done on the field, but also off it, and how he's interacted with his teammates and stuff. I want to hear a little bit of that, but I don't know if we will.
I don't think we will. I think they're apt to really just kind of continue to play this close to the vest, and that played into the decision to do this in a very low-key fashion on Wednesday, and it's going to continue that way until Dylan Raiola is a star. And if he becomes that, and he's an all Big Ten caliber quarterback, or he's got 20-1 on touchdowns to interceptions three or four games into the year, then I think they might be a little bit more loose with the information that comes out. But I think they've learned some lessons. And, I think Matt Rhule has learned some lessons in his coaching career, whether it was at the pro level and the way things went off the rails with the quarterback position when he was with the Panthers, or even the way that they dealt with quarterbacks in his time at Baylor and Temple. They were very careful with freshman quarterbacks, and he had true freshman quarterbacks at both of those places, but it wasn't always a smooth ride. It certainly wasn't a smooth ride for Charlie Brewer for a year or two into his time at Baylor under Matt Rhule. So, I think he's expecting the unexpected, and they're not going to go into this kind of celebratory mode where it's like, okay, now that the dust is cleared and we're past all the hurdles, we're just going to tell you guys when we knew. But it still would be nice to know. It still would be nice to ask that question. Yeah. I will ask the question to Matt Rhule on Friday. When did you know?
He'll probably just say, hey, like when I announced it, I just got out my phone and tweeted, that was kind of it. No, I
thought he sounded tired. I thought he sounded kind of tired on the radio on Wednesday night. Did you? I mean, is this just like an August 21st, 22nd thing when you've just been grinding been burning the midnight oil? I thought that he needs to take a good nap at least once or twice before the opener arrives.
I think so too. But so you were talking about, they're not going to go into celebratory mode, but we just did an episode a couple days ago, asking the question, should Husker fans drink the Kool-Aid? I think it's obviously been a different approach from the Nebraska fan base today, and for good reason. This is something that's worth celebrating. I mean, it's worth kind of looking around and saying, man, they got this guy, and obviously you don't know what he's going to be yet. You don't know to what extent he's going to be successful, but I mean, there should be as much confidence as there's ever been in the future of that position at this program, like, since the Osborne era. So like, I think it's a healthy thing for the fans to kind of look at and say, wow, this is crazy.
Here's how I look at it. So the Dylan Raiola hype train, it arrived in the station to set off on its journey last year in December or January, however you want to chart it, when he committed, when he signed, when he enrolled in classes. And now, as of today, or maybe next Saturday, but today, it's pulling into the station at the first stop, and they safely made it to the first stop. Like, there were opportunities for this thing to go off the tracks at various times in the offseason. Who knows? This is Nebraska. Bizarre stuff happens, and we have made it to the first station, the first stop on the long journey. So yeah, it is reason to celebrate. And I think a lot of Nebraska fans are relieved that we got to this point and nothing has gone wrong. So there are some big journeys ahead, and some twists and turns on that train track that are no guarantees. There's no guarantee that it won't slide off the tracks then.
One stop at a time. That's definitely the approach here. One stop at a time. All right. We'll come back. We'll continue to discuss this. I was cooking up a little something before we were getting started tonight about, kind of the history of the recent history of 5-star quarterbacks. So we've talked about this before. It's kind of recycled, but where they've gone, what kind of programs they've gone into, and how much, Nebraska is kind of an outlier in this situation. So I want to bounce that off of Mitch when we return. Plenty more angles when we come back. Please remember to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at LockedOnNEB. You can also email the show, LockedOnNEB@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, we'd love to use them right here on this show. We'll come back after this. All right, it's Tapper here for a new sponsor to the show, Ibata, Ibotta. Ibata is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop, earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. The average Ibata user earns $256 a year. While other apps give you points that don't amount to much, Ibata provides cash back that you can move into your bank or your PayPal account or take as gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. Save on over 2,400 brands. Shop at more than 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibata is offering our listeners $5 just to try it out. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. So just go over to the App Store, the Google Play Store, download the free Ibata app, and start earning cash back today. That's Ibata, Ibotta, in the Google Play or App Store with the code LOCKEDONCollege.
All right, welcome back on this Thursday. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone in Omaha is with me. We seem to have made it through our internet connectivity issues, so the pod goes on. We have 2 more shows this week for you, and then it's game week, man. What are we going to do on game week? Something special. We're going to do predictions next week. We're going to have to come up with some staples that we bring to the audience. This is our first run through this thing. I can't believe this pod is still just 4 months out of the gates, and we've got to come up with some kind of a routine to bring people something special on Friday during game weeks. What would you like to do?
I don't know. We've always talked about that mailbag segment, which love the idea of that. So we could
I think it could be a Friday thing during the season.
Yeah, something like that, or maybe even a Monday after a game, or whatever it might be. But yeah, we're excited to run through this. We are also, much like Dylan Raiola, getting to this first stop at the station, and we're very excited about where we are, but we're ready to go to stop number 2, which is the season.
I can't wait for us to have a game to talk about. I hope your Wednesday night was better than mine, Connor. I got to break out the jumper cables thanks to my my coaching buddy Mark, who came through for me and provided some jumper cables. I was in his neighborhood, and my daughter's car wouldn't start after work, and we had to jump it. And so I'm going to be getting a new battery or getting something fixed today, Thursday, on her vehicle. The joys of having a teenage driver. I'm happy for you, Connor, that you have many, many years until that arrives, and I'm sure you're happy about that too.
It's going to be some time. Yes, I'm very excited. We're going to push that off until much later. I don't know the first thing about cars or what, you were explaining to me something with the belt fan, whatever. I was like, what are you talking about? But, good luck.
I really don't either. It's just kind of fake it till you make it on that kind of a thing. So
Mechanics,
I was able to
sound
jump
off in the comments. What's going on here?
I was able to jump the car. So basically what happened is when the car came back on, the engine cooling fan would not go off. So it drained the battery. And then when we got home and turned the car off, the engine cooling fan stayed on. So I was able to disconnect the battery to get the fan to go off. But I think I have a bad relay switch on the engine cooling fan. Tell us in the comments what you think so I can go to the shop. I can go to the garage and tell them what to fix as if they have no idea what they're looking at. So
it's good diagnostics.
Yes. All right. We're going to continue with the Dylan Raiola is Nebraska's starting quarterback discussion. Before we get to some other stuff in this episode, we're going to talk about Matt Rhule's appearance Wednesday night on the tired coach trudges on through preseason camp just until you get through, and then you got game week, Coach Rhule. And we'll talk a little bit of volleyball at the end of the episode. So, okay, Connor, I got a question for you. So, you're Marcus Satterfield, and you've got the headset, you've got the play sheets. Week 1 is approaching. I want to know how you handle the freshman quarterback. What do you do at the start of this game against UTEP to ensure that he's got success? Are you low risk, high reward? Low risk, low reward, high risk, high reward? What's the plan with Dylan Raiola right out of the chutes in week 1?
First of all, Mitch, I really love this question. This is definitely something that I remember every year, like 2 days before the game starts. And it's like, what's the first play going to be? People actually love this. I am probably a little bit, I want to see it probably more than Marcus Satterfield, calling a game wants to see it. They're going to play it conservative. So it's hard to be like, it's hard to put myself in his shoes. But I think they'll do a lot of the, maybe the first plays probably a handoff. And then if it's 2nd and 8, then you go straight into the bag of, I think, what you did in the spring game. You go like RPO, swing it out. I think a fun game that we could play is maybe we do this next week. We could do bets. Who's Dylan Raiola's first pass going to be completed to, and why is it Thomas Fedoni minus 150? Something like that. We could do that. That's definitely a segment or a show for next week.
You need to come up with the different props that we can fake bet on, and I think that'd be fantastic. I'm taking Fedoni. I think I'm with you. I think it will be a handoff. I think it will be Emmett Johnson. I'm saying Emmett Johnson. That's a tougher call than what's going to happen. Obviously, it was a tougher call than what was going to happen at the quarterback spot, but that's maybe the hardest thing is who's going to be out there at running back. I'm saying Emmett Johnson. He gets the handoff, and then on 2nd and 6, Dylan throws an RPO to Thomas Fedoni, and they get a first down, and they move the chains, and there's not a 3rd down until later in that drive.
So this will be okay. We could use this as trying to figure out the lines for this, and we'll bounce these off each other over the next week. We'll do this show. I promise you, we'll do this show next week because I will do this show on my show next week. How many passes do you think he'll throw in game 1? Is there a number in your mind? Is it in the mid 20s, the upper 20s, the 30s?
I was going to put the over under at 23.5. That just came off the top of my head.
That's kind of low. That's not much.
They want to run the ball. They're a running team. They're a physical team. This is Big Ten football. I think they get ahead. They get comfortably ahead. I think Nebraska wins this game. Oh, I'm not gonna do that yet. We'll wait. We'll get till next week. I was getting really excited. I was going to give you a score, but I think they're going to win it in a way that allows for Dylan to not have to throw it 30 times.
Yeah. And they'll want to definitely be, really care, especially, and there's reason to too. It's not just hiding it for the sake of hiding it. You have a big game the next week. You have a game that you're assuming you're going to win, and this is not how coaches think about it, but Nebraska's going to beat UTEP. And I don't think you want to flash too much for your game against Colorado, which is a giant game for the program. To skip a week ahead, I'm really excited to talk about it that week, obviously leading into the Colorado game based on what we see the UTEP game. But, I'm wondering if they're going to say it out loud. Like, this is a big game for our program. It is, it's
Colorado.
It's the Oregon game in 2016, which propelled Nebraska to a 7-0 start. It was their last ranked win, so I think, I'm curious to have that conversation too, but that's a week later.
There will be plenty of time to talk about how big the Colorado game is.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to go through a few things of less significance that Matt Rhule said on Wednesday night in his appearance on the Coaches Show with Greg Sharp. And then we'll get to a final conversation about Nebraska volleyball and what's going on there. I know you're going to have the producers, the directors, the producers, the creators.
The director. One of them dropped out. We're going to have the other one on her, and I'm going to pull up her name right now just so I don't mess this up too bad.
Jen or Maddie?
Jen Carson Strauss will be on our show today, Thursday at 10:30. The producer director of No Place Like Nebraska, the volleyball E60 that'll be out this weekend.
Yeah, out on Sunday. We've seen it. I've seen it. You've seen it. We're going to talk a little bit about that and why it was a surprise, or some parts of it were a surprise to us. So that's coming up next after the break. I want to tell you before we go to break that college football is back, and it's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. You can get it all from Locked On's stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conferences? Everything you need to know in one place. So be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On College Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, Mitch Sherman here to tell you about a new sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Nebraska fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up about a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love. It's called Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of Nebraska? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? That's the question. And here's what I really love about the game in learning about it. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but it will shape the future and the legacy and your legacy of for the program. So Ultimate College Football HC, it's completely free, has no ads, 100% playable offline. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Nebraska fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB in all caps inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk, as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in the app stores. That's Ultimate College Football HC.
All right, welcome back. Third and final segment here on a Thursday as we get closer and closer to game day. A couple other odds and ends that Matt Rhule got into on his radio show on Wednesday night. First of all, he confirmed that Carter Nelson, Ja'Cory Barney, Vincent Shavers are all going to play. I mean, those are the three easy ones that we pegged for freshman playing time this year. And I think that, and he mentioned a couple more freshmen like Amari Sanders and Willis McGahee. I think there's probably a couple more as well that are going to work their way onto the field. But those guys you would certainly expect to see right away and contributing a big piece for Nebraska in week one.
So 4 for certain, including Raiola, and then a couple others who are kind of on the fence or inside the fence, but we'll see about the playing time. Willis McGahee surprised me a little bit because he's a jack linebacker, and Nebraska's got a couple guys who I feel like are black shirt caliber ahead of him. So we'll see. Maybe he's number 3 on that jack linebacker spot. That's an interesting development if that's the case. Also, he was concerned about the kicker situation, the special team situation, how they're 10 days out from the first game and they still don't have a determination as to who's going to kick. And that's in large part because of the injury that Tristan Alvano suffered, or the surgery that he had in the offseason, and he's just yet to get back to 100%. We talked about that Wednesday on the show. Rhule also mentioned that they don't know at this point who's going to return punts and who's going to return kickoffs. So Ed Foley, the special teams coordinator, has got his work cut out for him over the last 10 days of camp.
He does. I mean, those are big decisions. I mean, I think we have a pretty good idea. Like, once again, we go back to yesterday's episode. I kind of feel like at this rate, it's going to be John Hull doing the kicking for Nebraska. We'll see how quickly Alvano is able to get back. That's just the way it feels to me right now. And then we had probably 3 or 4 names that are back returning kicks and punts that, you could expect back there. We'll see how aggressively Nebraska wants to play it early with guys like Barney. We know he's explosive. We saw that in the spring game, and he's been here and he's been in play now mode, I think, ever since he walked on campus. So we'll see how aggressive they are with him in the return game. But that's a feel spot, and Nebraska's got to get something out of that this year. They have to be better at kicking, and they have to get something out of the return game. It's just there was nothing there.
They need to win that part of the battle. One thing I want to say also about Wednesday night, before we get to the volleyball talk. So Rhule mentioned that there will not be alternate uniforms this year. So we introduced a segment of our show very early in the podcast, and I think we did this once. Here's number 2: things that I don't care about. Nebraska wearing alternate uniforms or not wearing alternate uniforms in 2024, I don't care. They're talking about it for 2026. Rhule confirmed with the equipment manager, Jay Terry. I don't care about that either. Wear whatever uniforms you want. Like, I don't care about the alternates. I know some people get really into this and really worked up and excited. I just want to be able to read the jersey numbers on the back.
Yeah,
on the back of the jerseys. So that's why I'm mocking you. I really don't care, but I'm making a bigger deal out of this than should be, because some people care way too much.
I'll take it a step further. I'll say that I'm glad they're not doing alternate uniforms. You want to know why? And I'll go Mitch Sherman voice here, because every time they do it, they suck. The alternate uniforms are bad. Like you said, I just want to be able to read the numbers, so we don't have to deal with that crap this year, which is actually kind of nice. I think we are actually in agreement on this.
All right, good. Okay, last topic of the program today. On Sunday night, Nebraska volleyball will be in the spotlight on ESPN. It is at 5 Eastern, 4 Central, a 60-minute show all about the 2023 season, from the stadium match at Memorial Stadium to the national championship. And you hear about this and you think, wow, I'm surprised they're still putting that on the air, because, well, they went 33-2, but I mean, how's that all that interesting? They didn't win the national championship. I mean, yeah, it's a group that didn't have any seniors, but what made this stand out for ESPN other than the 92,000 at Memorial Stadium in August, from any other great college volleyball season that Nebraska or Texas or Wisconsin or Penn State or Stanford has had over the years? And then you watch the thing. I got to see it this week. You got to see it. And they say, oh, okay, there's some drama. There's some heartbreak, some uncomfortable moments in this thing that they documented.
Yeah, and I think the big picture is really interesting, and it only comes at a place like Nebraska in the sport of volleyball. I mean, Nebraska volleyball operates like a college football program. It has all the attention on it. Hell, it has more attention on it than most college football programs do. And so it's uncommon. I mean, maybe you have UConn women's basketball. There's a few other programs across the country on the women's sports side that have as much attention and pressure on it than being a Nebraska volleyball player. So it underscores that, obviously, right out of the gate. We're talking, it's volleyball day right out of the gate. There's 90,000 people there. It's really cool to kind of relive that for a few minutes, but there's a lot to it. There's some interesting dynamics here, and it gives you a real good window inside of the pressures that those women face every day playing volleyball, because it's super uncommon in the sport.
That is, I think, what they had to sell to their bosses at ESPN. And you should ask them about this. Ask Jennifer about this, but if they're going and they come and they see the stadium match and like, wow, Nebraska volleyball is a phenomenon. These women are loved in the state. It's unlike anything else that goes on. And then they go back to Bristol and they say, we want to do an E60 about this. The suits at ESPN are going to be like, what makes it interesting? Yep. What is it about? How are you going to sell this to your audience? And then they can kind of roll out, well, they play in this incredibly pressure-packed environment. And while there's all this glory on one side of the wall where they have these fawning fans and they go on the road and people are waiting at the bus exits and at the edge of the arena to see the famous Nebraska volleyball team that played in front of 90,000 people. On the other side of that wall, there's all kinds of pressure. And you really get to see it with Harper Murray. I mean, she's what makes this thing come together and be compelling television. That's just the reality of it. I mean, conflict sells, and there's already a backstory with Harper Murray that includes tragedy. It's been well documented here in Nebraska, but not on the national level, that her father, Veda Murray, died when Harper was 6 years old. I mean, he died of cancer. This was a former Michigan football player, and it left their family in shambles. And the two girls have grown up to become college volleyball stars. Harper more so than even more so than her sister who played at Michigan. And then after this season, when Harper was outspoken in the aftermath of the national championship, she went home and was just unhappy with things, the way that she was being portrayed, the reactions that she was receiving from Nebraska fans and college volleyball fans. And, things went downhill for her in a hurry in the offseason. She was arrested for a DUI. She was ticketed for shoplifting, and it's been a rough ride. And they tackle that. They dive into that and give you some real insight.
Yeah, and it leaves some real. I mean, for Nebraska volleyball fans, for Nebraska athletic fans who are probably volleyball fans, are definitely globbing onto them because they're so successful. It on paper, that team should be awesome, right? They're bringing everybody back. Basically, they didn't have seniors last year. That was another like compelling part of that team. But I do think there's like some unanswered stuff with that group of just trying to work through a really bumpy kind of off season, especially as it pertains to Harper. So, I mean, I think that's almost the preamble. Like, you could do a part 2 and cover this season, and it maybe is more interesting. Like there's a lot of stuff to kind of think about. It definitely leaves you thinking. So I'm curious to see what the reaction is when people watch it.
Yeah, check it out. I'd recommend it. It's compelling programming, and it's cool also to see E60 devoting that kind of attention, not just to Nebraska and the sport of volleyball, but to women's sports in general. And it just kind of continues a trend that we've seen in this country with women's sports and women's college sports in the last couple of years, getting unprecedented national coverage.
All right, that's it for us today. We'll be back on Friday for you guys for another episode, and then it is game week. A thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. Plenty of summer topics in there, and of course, getting ready for the season. Spencer McLaughlin, as you covered, on the gridiron for another exciting season. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't even need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.